There is an argument that I see a lot. You'll see it play out in social media. You'll see it play out in real media. You'll see it play out in social media, on TV. You'll see it play it out in between pundits and between idiots arguing on the bus. And while what it boils down to might be false, unfortunately, it's also insidious, because there is an attempt to make defending your community and wanting to shoot children essentially the same thing. There's different versions of this, but it all boils down to the same core lie, that wanting to protect your community against hate is the same thing as sociopathy or psychopathy, is the same thing as being a monster. Here's one example of how the conversation plays out. I want to ban semi-automatic firearms. That's ridiculous. Literally every gun made since the 1950s that you would want to use for defense is semi-automatic. Yeah, but most school shootings are done with semi-automatic, so if we ban them, we'd be able to save lives. That's not how that works. Look, if it will save even one life, it's worth doing, right? But that's not... You won't do something to save one child's life. Ugh, you're ridiculous. But that's not true. Oh, so you agree with me. Ban semi-automatic weapons. The problem, beyond the aneurysm-inducing frustration that must have been felt by the person who was trying to explain why their life was worth defending with reasonable tools, is there was a lie that was swallowed during that exchange. And if you don't know to look for it, you can get swept up in it. So let's play that back. If it will save even one life, it's worth doing, right? And this right here is what I want to refer to as the scoreboard fallacy. Lots of people who don't understand the concept of defense as a right and a concept can't formulate it as an abstract. It's a thing that is too far... Can't formulate it beyond a abstraction. It's a thing that, beyond an abstraction, understand the concepts of self-defense. It's not something that you grapple with unless it's pressed into your face, and you kind of have to. So for a lot of people, the idea of using a gun to save a life rather than using one to kill somebody makes no sense. That there is no reality where that happens. Which ends up creating this problem where they don't understand the full ramifications of something they might be pushing, while seeing a benefit that seems good. And this is a really easy way to trick people to working against their community. Straight up pushing for ideas and policies that, when you are fighting back, when you are desperately trying to survive, especially when we're doing things like community defense, you don't want to be hamstrung. You don't want to have the exact minimum of what the government decides is possible for using defensively. If you are defending yourself, if you are defending your community, if the fact that you go down means some innocent person is next, I don't want a fucking fair fight. I want to have the advantage. There is a reason why these tools are the ones that people who have to fight, they want them exclusively. None of these bans will ever affect the police. They will never affect the military, because these are the tools they would use. 1.7 million. That's the number of defensive gun uses from 1 year in the United States. And this is the part of the conversation where guns stop becoming a simple yes-no and start becoming an incredibly important abstraction of defense generally. Banning somebody from these tools and banning communities from accessing them makes them weaker when they have to defend themselves. And we're at a point where queer folk are facing literal calls for genocide. And not by, like, crackpots either. You have members of the House of Representatives who are openly calling for trans people to be pushed up against the wall and shot. You have senators that are saying that the concept of queer acceptance is antithetical to America and it must be fought even with blood. We are past the point where they're using rhetoric. This is straight up calls to action. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. We're out here fighting for a reason. If I had to TLDR this entire video, it would be into this one sentence. Hate doesn't need to happen on both sides for a fight to break out. If one side hates another side, it does not matter how much love and compassion they show back. Some of the people who hate are going to show it with violence. And if the people who are hated have a right to exist, they need to have a right to defend themselves when attacked. We live in a strange age. There are multiple options for guns that can be built 100% DIY. Completely at home, no restrictions, no ability to be limited. The concept of bans forevermore will only apply to the people who are willing to follow the law, because with $300 and a 3D printer, I can make an FGC-9, the WTF Mod 9. There's a variety of Ruger 22 options that are becoming available. Hoffman's upper and lower ARs have made the concept of building your own AR significantly closer. If you're willing to put in a bit more for parts kits, there's everything from setme's to ARs to basically anything that you can think of. And even if you restricted all of those, you'd still have, again, the stuff that can be built entirely at home. And even if you banned ammo, again, the FGC-9 package has a home brew for making your own 9mm. There are multiple DIY ammo productions, either somewhere in development or in early releases that you can access. Not to mention, frankly, the idea of making your own ammo has been a thing that people have done for literally fucking centuries. You're not going to be able to limit that effectively. Not to mention, Suckboy Tony, I see you out there. There are people who are even developing things that are electronically ignited, that don't need traditional ammunition, that short-circuit the entire concept of, what do you mean I can't just make it myself? And it's only going to get better from there. There's a lot of reasons to buy guns, and I'm not going to even sit here and pretend like every gun purchase needs to make sense. God knows I have my fair share of mean, dumb bullshit builds that I have either printed or worked on from cheap projects. I get it. Not everything needs to be sensible. Sometimes you can just have fun. But I also have multiple weapons specifically for keeping my ass alive, for keeping my family alive, and for fighting for my community. Pretty much all of those are semi-automatic, save one. And everybody who's currently mocking the brace ban and was just saying that it's people who are making fun of themselves or who have been who brought this upon themselves, couple things there. First of all, they were told directly by letters from the ATF that this was legal, this was fine, and you're allowed to have this. Several million people bought these. Even if there are some people who are shouldering themselves, you are being wildly ableist when you focus on the fact that these are occasionally being used by people who, wanted something shorter but didn't want the SBR bullshit, which, by the way, go watch the video from Forgotten Weapons. He explains really nicely why you're probably wrong about why that's so dangerous too. But regardless of all of that, there are a lot of people who have braces entirely because they have disabilities. There are people who have talked to me in my Discord, kind of heartbreakingly, about not knowing what to do from a defensive standpoint because they literally needed the brace because they couldn't operate the weapon otherwise, and they don't think they could operate something really long. Their options are kind of fucked. And they're not going to be able to do SBR bullshit. There's a lot of states where that's just, haha, we banned those a long time ago, motherfucker. The braces were already the only option for some of these people. And I need y'all to care. This is going to affect people with disabilities. This is going to affect queer people. This is going to affect millions of people of color who bought weapons last year because, dear God, the world's on fucking fire and racism is pushing its way to a new forefront in America, and yet suddenly we're going to tell millions of them that, by the way, you're now felons. Entirely because this system is so fucking broken that we allow the ATF to just pick the law. Again, this is a thing that they had written specific letters saying was fine. This is a thing that is going to affect piles of people who have disabilities, including there are people who have disabilities who are considering their defense and realizing how fucking disposable they are to some of these politicians. Please don't be one of them. Braces might be a workaround for some people, but for others, it's literally the only way they were ever going to be able to operate those weapons, and the ATF just said fuck you to a lot of them. We're past the point where this shit is theoretical. Some of the weapons I have are specifically because we defend drag shows where they come armed, masked, with fucking plate carriers and ARs. I've literally changed up some of the weapons I have to be more suitable to the situations that we face outside of drag shows. These are things that we're using to defend our community from actual fucking Nazis. Like, not, oh, it's annoying to talk to somebody, so I'm just going to call it, literally referring to themselves as National Socialists, fucking Nazis. They're opening fire in our clubs. And this is only the start. It gets worse from here. At a time when cops aren't getting reformed, when, if anything, everyone who was pushing reform has suddenly steered back into giving them more money and resources and refusing to hold any of them accountable for the racism and hatred that runs rampant through their numbers. And then on top of that, you have cops that are literally being forced or embracing the fact that they are arresting us for our fucking existences in some states now. And, or at bare minimum, this is the laws that are coming. Until 2019, being trans was used as evidence of solicitation in New York. I have friends who have walking while trans charges. That only stopped in 2019. They didn't get less hateful, they just realized people were looking. It's swinging back. And you want us to disarm for them? The people who will come and arrest us? They don't run in to save children. You seriously think they're going to save my queer ass? And that's before we skip back to the giant truth that I started in the video and then kind of skipped past. People who talk about banning firearms focus on guns being used to end a life, when in fact, based on the number of use cases for defensive gun uses, more often than not, guns are used to prevent a life from being taken. Often when somebody is attacked and or someone is attacking someone but has a gun drawn on them, they are taking the easiest way out and just fleeing. So the options are someone likely dead, or everyone walks away. People who hate guns are willing to lie about them because they think all of them every single piece of the gun pie is tainted and evil. And it doesn't matter any good that they do because they'll be able to come up with a theoretical reason that it could go wrong in the future. Because defense to someone who doesn't face literal calls for genocide is always going to sound different. The idea that nobody has ever come for you and yours will affect you. It will change the way you think, and it's something we have to resist because There is no group they won't go after. And queer folk happen to be the target now, but we have to... Everyone needs to maintain our rights to defend ourselves as our own communities, rather than surrendering this to the fascist state. That's just how it works. Thank you for watching, I really do appreciate it. Thank you for watching, I really do appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe, do all of the usual YouTube things. I'm over on Patreon. If you want to support this channel existing and continuing to make videos, Patreon's the place to make sure that keeps happening. That's going to be it. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay dangerous, y'all. Keep each other safe. And remember, moral doesn't mean legal, and Stonewall was a fucking riot. Have a good night. Better. Alright.